What's up, guys? This week we are tackling Amazon Prime's One Night in Miami. Let's go! And welcome back. This week we are talking about a film that's on Amazon Prime. That's what I'm trying to say, Amazon Prime. The movie's called One Night in Miami. It's a 2020 American drama film that is directed by, it's actually her debut direction, Regina King, in her feature, with a screenplay that's written by Kemp Powers, who also did the screenplay by the play. I don't know if it was on Broadway or not, but it is a play. By the very same name. It's a fictionalized account of Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, back when he was still Cassius Clay, Jim Brown, who was a football player, very famous football player, and Sam Cooke, who was obviously an amazing musician in his day. They meet in a room in the Hampton House in February of 1964, which actually did happen. They did have a meeting, but this is a completely fictionalized account of what happened that day. It celebrates Ali's surprise win over Sonny Liston in typical Muhammad Ali fashion. You know, I'm a bad man, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, right? Yeah, so it stars Kingsley Benadir, Eli Gorey, Aldous Hodge, and of course Leslie Odom Jr. plays Sam Cooke, and he sounds just like Sam Cooke when he sings on this movie. It is pretty dang amazing. So, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this movie. Lemuel, why don't you go first and tell us your thoughts on One Night in Miami?
So the beginning was a little confusing for me at first. Just the way it transitioned from Cassius Clay to the football player to everyone else. It took me a second to kind of gather what was going on.
Okay.
So it was nice when they got to that house and it was just kind of in that one area because I'm kind of caught up with everything.
Okay. Was it because you didn't know who the people were?
Yeah, I had no idea what was going on at first. I had no idea what this film was even about.
Okay.
So for me, I was just like, I don't know who these people are.
Okay, let me ask you a question really quick. From a 22-year-old perspective, was there any of those characters in that room that you actually knew before you watched this movie?
Oh yeah, so I knew who Malcolm X was. I had a history in Hollywood class. We watched that movie that came out ages ago about him.
With Denzel Washington?
Yes, with
Okay.
Denzel Washington. We watched that. We talked about him a lot. It was kind of nice because I feel like our high school history teachers kind of like gave us a pretty good history on him because I feel like before high school I was just kind of told, oh, he was kind of like a violent person and stuff, and then I got to high school and they're like, well, no, not actually.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a nice history. I've heard of Muhammad Ali, but I had never heard his actual name before.
Oh, okay.
So I was confused on that, and then I had no idea who Sam Cooke or the football player.
I'm actually not sure Cassius Clay is his real name either. I could be wrong, but I'm not sure it is. But anyway, yeah. All right, so great. Did you like the movie? What'd you think?
I liked it. I liked the interaction between the characters a lot. It was like you could tell that they were friends. They did a very good job of having dialogue and stuff. It was the lack of music for the majority of it was a little off-putting, but when the music did come in, it was pretty effective.
Okay.
And it was interesting where like 80% of the movie was in that one room. I like that aspect to it a lot.
Yeah, very good. Charlie, what about you?
I enjoyed this flick. I thought I chose it because I recognized the characters, and I thought I didn't know that there was an actual meeting, or what was going on, but for the history part. But I thought just the phenomenal power that was represented on all fronts by these four men getting together in totally different aspects just kind of like blew my mind. So I was thinking this would be really cool to see what kind of interaction was going to happen. I'm totally a Sam Cooke fan. That was the icing on the cake for me. I really enjoyed the songs. I mean, when he pulled out the music and just ripped vocally through it, it charmed me. It was good.
Yeah.
Totally got it. I love the representation of Malcolm X because he didn't come across as a forceful person at all.
No,
other than just very direct. Is like, we are humanly responsible. We are responsible, and this is what we need to do to be humanly responsible. I like that. I thought that was a unique representation than what most people think of.
Yeah.
Here, Malcolm X. Because the name is so strong. I mean, you hear X at the end of a name, and it like signifies something a little different than what we might anticipate it meaning.
Right. And from the white perspective, I guess you could say. We tend to have two different ideas, right? We have Martin Luther King Jr. and then we have Malcolm X, and they tend to this is coming from me, who's white as can be. Actually, I'm part Mexican, but anyway, still white as can be.
I'm whiter than you.
But but we have this extreme. Like we say, okay, there's Martin Luther King Jr. that was on one side that was peaceful, and everything he did was protest and peace. And then we had Malcolm X, who tried to incite violence and whatnot. And to be fair, some of his words they tried to incite violence. I mean, words matter. That is for sure. But when it comes down to it, Malcolm X cared just as much about his community as Martin Luther King Jr. did, just possibly, from a different perspective. And he was a young man. Both King and X were young men, and X was 35 when he was killed. I think he was a young man. So I liked it too. I have to admit there were times where it was kind of hard to follow because it's such a dialogue heavy movie because it is based off of a play. But I am impressed how they brought that movie to life, even though it was based off of a play. A lot of times when you get a movie that's based off of a play, they either do one or two things. It either just gets really boring because it doesn't translate to the screen well, or they try to put too much extra stuff in it that just ruins it. You're like, okay, this is not a play anymore. But they used, as Lemuel said, they used it very sparingly, where they say, okay, they cut from the hotel room, like when they went down to the store, and then at the very end, of course, they show Sam Cooke at the Tonight Show singing, I guess what you could call a protest song, right? My favorite interaction, I think, as you kind of alluded to, Charlie, my favorite interaction in this movie was between Malcolm X's character and Sam Cooke. And just that Malcolm had this one way of looking at it, and Sam is like, look, do you not realize how much I've impacted, the black community in the fact that I have given these people jobs. I'm very rich. I have these songs, and the Rolling Stone cuts it, and guess what? I make buco bucks because I own the copyrights to that song. So he's like, look, I have made an impact in my own way, And I thought that was an interesting thing. But it was interesting how they took one Jim Brown, who was kind of a retiring sports figure, that was on the national stage, who was going into acting at that point in time in his career, and this young punk Cassius Clay, who was becoming the biggest thing in boxing, and to this day he's still one of the top 5 heavyweight boxers ever. He's still there, right? He's been dead for 5 or 6 years now, and people still know who Muhammad Ali is, right? I mean, those of us who were around when he was kind of the thing, though, I mean, before he started to really suffer from his Parkinson's, like, whoa, this guy was brash and in your face, man. He didn't care. But and then to have Sam Cooke and then Malcolm X, but I'll tell you that one scene where Malcolm X gets after Sam and says, "Put that record on over there." Right?
Yeah, and he plays a Bob Dylan.
Yeah, and he says, this guy is speaking more social commentary than you are in your music. What do you got to say about that? He's a white boy, and he's more black than you are.
Not only that, but he's a middle-class white boy.
Yeah, middle-class white Jewish boy. So I just, that was like, woo. And Sam, obviously, they portray it as
he took the bait.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Totally
He did. Yeah, I don't know. I love that interaction. Do you guys have any other things to say about this movie?
I really enjoyed watching Jim Brown. The way he played that, just as like how he'd done all this work, he'd been the best, and faced so much disrespect, like backhanded disrespect all over the place, and how it's like when he was around his friends, it's like, I don't have to put up your crap. It's like,
yeah,
I already get enough of that. You don't see it, but
right.
It's like, it's always there.
Yeah, there's that whole scene where Jim is talking to Malcolm. He's like, you're compensating for being whiter. You're a light-skinned black man, and that's what you're compensating for, isn't it? Woo, that was like, okay. Look, I'm a white person listening to this thing, but I'm like, oh,
I know it was so, but it was so spot on. I mean, It's like he wasn't willing to let people slip by and get away with their own, like.
No, he did not. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, It's just like the whole self-image was like shot down there.
Right. And of all 4 of those characters in that movie, Jim Brown is the only one that's still alive. He's in his 70s or 80s now. That one scene at the very beginning that Lemuel's talking about, he's at that house The
that
guy,
made me
the
mad.
Beau Bridges guy,
That
and
made me actually mad.
you're just like, he's having this grand old conversation, and then it's like, it doesn't matter.
It's like, would you let yourself go out by the back door kind of thing.
Yeah, what
like,
kind
I
of...
was so mad.
The Jim Brown is it's quite possibly one of the biggest names in the country at that point in time. And yet, no matter how big he is, the white man still can't let him forget that he's still black.
Yeah.
I just like, when he said that, I'm like, okay. Wow.
It's like,
I don't know.
Jim needs
But
to
this is really
smack that guy.
But you know what? That kind of stuff still happens. It may not be as blatant as that, but it still happens. And that frustrates me when you have people that say, oh, well, there's no racism today, or there wouldn't be racism if you wouldn't talk about it. Let me just say, and I'll just say this right now, that is the biggest bunch of bullshit in the whole entire world.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
I'm just saying. So that's as political as I'm going to get right now. But I think it's a great movie, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give my score, and then you guys can speak up and tell me what you guys thought of it. But I am going to give it. I'm going to give it a. This is where I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it a 3.5 overall. Okay. Like I said, there was a couple of times where I felt like I just needed something else to keep my attention, and that could be because I've got this 2021 brain that's been, completely, MTV and everything else. So that might be my problem more than it was the movie's problem. But it is a fantastic film. It's worth seeing. Charlie, why don't you go next?
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to also give it a 3.5. I think it's because the shooting was good, but I think that they lost some dynamic from some of the camera angle that I think they could have probably done better to like frame in shots a little different. So that way you got more like artistically, you could have done more visually, as well as like Len was said about the absence of music. I appreciated that comment because I didn't think of it at first, but as soon as you said it, I was like, oh yeah. That would have also done something to like really press it up.
I wonder.
So 3.5.
Good deal. 3.5.
Story is fantastic. Themes are awesome. And I'm gonna guess it's probably budget. All those faces on there are very familiar from a lot of like TV and small movie cast. Mm-hmm. And so that's probably where all their budget went.
Right. Leslie Odom probably being the biggest one on there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, great. I wonder, though, if there were some artistic decisions that were made to keep that camera, kind of sitting back in the corner like it was, to kind of give you the feeling of it being a play. You know what I mean?
Now that could be, and I could be misinterpreting that.
Yeah,
because
I don't know.
Like,
yeah,
I'm more of a movie guy, and not necessarily.
yeah. I don't know. It's just the thought I have, and the same with the music, right? I mean, if you go to a play, there's not going to be a lot of music. Sometimes they use music, but it's very sparing. So Lemuel, what about you?
I gave it a 4 out of 5. Like I said, the beginning for me was probably the roughest part, just because I didn't understand what was going on. But once we got into the hotel and everything, it was really fun watching all the character interactions. I didn't notice the cinematography as much, but I liked the way they handled the music, because I thought the music was only used when it felt like it was needed, and for me that was very impactful. And just it felt like the conversation between them, even though they were having some somewhat harder conversations than I would with my friends, it did feel like a conversation I'd have with my friends. And I like that a lot too. Yeah.
You could tell they liked it. I mean, it was a friendship. That was a really cool part about it. Yeah. So with those scores, this movie is Simpleton certified. Yeah. Rahoo! Right on. Hey, that's the first certified one we've had in a little bit, so that's pretty cool. Awesome. One Night in Miami, worth a watch. Go check it out. You can watch it for free if you have Amazon Prime. It is a fantastic movie. You won't regret it. And now it is time to head into our segment that we like to call Pop Culture Happiness. Charlie, why don't you start us off?
I'm going to start us up. Hey, you know what? I like talking, because I chose this movie, mainly because of the characters in it. Well, our next, my piece of news is about a character. Baz Luhrmann, who is does some fantastic visual works. He did the Romeo and Juliet in the late 90s. Did Moulin Rouge and several other movies. And they're all brilliantly colored and bright. He is doing a biopic of Elvis.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're filming it now, and I'm sure you guys seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I have
That's
not
most
seen
recent.
that yet. No.
Oh,
I do need
okay.
to see it. Yeah.
So the guy who plays Tex in that, when you watch it, is playing Elvis. So he's a famous young actor and is getting his name out there. I think he's done more television shows and things, but he's stepping into this, and this is, I think it's, I'm sure it's going to go like a direct stream release, because who's going to the movies right now? Not very many.
Yeah, not very many.
So,
Right.
so but
Okay.
it sounds exciting.
All right, right on. So, Elvis biopic that'll be very colorful,
Yes.
right? For sure. Probably
Like Elvis himself.
he was a colorful character. There's no doubt about that. Mr. Lemuel, what do you got for us?
Okay, so mine is the teaser trailer for the newest Spider-Man movie dropped, No Way Home, and I thought it was hilarious the way they handled that situation.
Yeah,
That is amazing. Just memeing the fact that Tom Holland gave away the name of the last one is such a funny idea to me.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
good.
that was pretty good. That was funny, and they trolled people quite a bit on Instagram, I guess, and Twitter and whatnot with different names that they were gonna call it, like they said, like, you know, Spider-Man home slice, and
I
and
saw
I can't
one
remember
of
what it was.
those
Yeah.
too.
So each one of those characters, Zendaya and Tom Holland and poor guy, the friend. I can't think of his name. They all have their own tweets, but I guess the actual name is going to be No Way Home. Is that correct?
No Way Home.
No Way Home is going to be the name of the new Spider-Man movie, and he did say, Tom Holland did say, that there will not be Andrew Garfield or what's his name from the original Spider-Mans that Sam
Tobey
Raimi
Maguire.
did. Tobey Maguire. But
That's a bummer.
what's his face on the Tonight Show? He told him, he's like, you know, you do have a habit of giving stuff away, so maybe they're not telling you the real truth.
Just recording all the scenes where they interact without Tom Holland knowing.
Right. So maybe the multiverse thing still is happening. Who knows? Anyways. All right. Yeah. So Spider-Man, December of 2021. Theaters hopefully will be open by that point in time. Well, my bit of pop culture happiness, I came across this article and I found it really interesting. You guys know who Jonah Hill is?
Yes.
Yeah. So he's had his struggles with his weight over the years. When he originally started acting back when he was a late teenager, he was a pretty big boy, and over the course of his years, he's lost quite a bit of weight and got in shape. But I guess who was it? The Daily Mail. Yes, the Daily Mail posted a picture of him changing shirts following a recent surf session.
I just saw
And
this
he's
thing.
always been, Jonah Hill has had a terrible body issues. I think he probably suffers, which I do as well, I would say, from body dysmorphia, I think is what they call it. The idea, you know, that you're probably fatter than you are, or you look worse than you think you do. So it's called dysmorphia. But he said he's never felt comfortable taking his shirt off in the pool. Guilty. Even around family and friends, until his mid-30s, adding it probably would have happened sooner if my childhood insecurities weren't exacerbated by years of public mockery about my body by the press and by interviews. So the idea that the media tries to play me by stalking me while surfing and printing photos like this, and it can't faze me anymore, is dope. So he's I guess he's gotten to a point in his life where he just doesn't care anymore what the media thinks of him and what the public thinks of him. He just does what he does. It has to suck being in the public eye like that. It really, really does. He's 37 years old, he says, and he says, I finally love and accept myself. This isn't a good for me post, and it's definitely not a feel bad for me post. It's for the kids who don't take their shirt off at the pool. Have fun. You're wonderful and awesome and perfect. Good for you,
Right
Jonah
on.
Hill. Love it.
Yeah.
That made me happy because
cool.
I am one of those kids who did not like, to this day, doesn't like to take his shirt off at a public pool, and I am probably a lot less fat or ugly than I think I am. But that's you know, when you grow up all chunky and whatever like I do, those are the kind of issues you deal with. It sucks. And everybody thinks, oh, that's what girls deal with more. You know what? Boys deal with it just as much as girls do. And
We just don't say
unfortunately,
it as
sometimes,
much.
sometimes we suffer in silence. You know, which really
Because
sucks.
if you
but-
say anything, half the time you get made fun of. Like, no matter what. It's just, I don't know. It's just what we're supposed to do. Is we're not supposed to say.
Well, and you know, kids are mean. Look, I remember being teased incessantly when I was a kid, and kids will find whatever they can to pick on you about. It doesn't matter whether you're fat or skinny or blue eyes or green eyes or blonde hair or red hair. They'll find something to pick on you about. And I know I'm not the only one that got picked on, and there were plenty of kids that I didn't think were getting picked on that were probably getting picked on, you know? And I can't even imagine what it's like these days where they can't even go home to solitude and respite, you know, because the social media is there and it follows them home. So anyway, that was a happy moment made sad. But anyways, good for you, Jonah Hill. We love you, and thank you so much for for speaking out for us fat people. We appreciate that very much. So right on. Well, thank you so much for joining us this week here on the Simpleton Review. Go check out One Night in Miami. It is Simpleton certified, and it is worth the view. It's on Amazon Prime right now. Check out our Patreon page. We've got a Patreon page coming your way now. It is you can find it at Patreon/Simpleton Review. And you'll find tiers. You can support us on a monthly basis from $1 all the way up to $100. $1 is going to get you shout out and our innermost love for the rest of our lives. If you want to go all the way to the $100 level, that means you are the most awesome simpleton in the entire world. And Charlie, he's going to cut you an original piece of art. We're not talking a tiny little, we're talking a piece of art, probably painted. Yes, Charlie, for $100 a month. But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so see those paintings behind him? Those are his. He did those.
No, they're not. Oh. I did not do that.
Well, he did a couple of them. Which ones did you do?
I did this one.
I like that edition. You did that one in the center.
Rest.
Well, you did the pitch.
All the rest. I did the pigeon up top.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, anyways, he's still a good artist. I've got plenty of art in my house from Charlie. Amazing pianos and some other things that he does a great job. So check it out. Patreon.com/Simpleton Review. You can go to our website, simpletonreview.com. We'll have a link there. You can also check out all of our other videos and our podcast, and go to our merch store. That is threadless.com. You can find that link as well on our website. I am Nate Simpleton.
And I'm Charlie Simpleton.
I'm Lemuel Simpleton.
We're saying have a great week. We'll talk to you next time on the Simpleton Review.